Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really common, especially for professionals here in the USA. We're talking about those tricky negative emotions.
Mhm.
The guilt maybe after a meeting, or fear about what's next in your career, or even when blame for something kind of gets pointed your way. And often these feelings, they just turn inwards, right?
Exactly. And we're looking at a really helpful source today, Strategies for Positive Transformation.
Yeah.
It offers some, practical ways to handle these feelings. Not just ignore them, but engage with them calmly.
Yeah, constructively.
Right. And it really focuses on how we shift our internal responses.
Precisely. So our goal here is to pull out the best strategies from this piece, specifically for us professionals, on how to stop that negative self-talk loop, the should-haves, the if-onlys, and, build a more supportive inner voice.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's dive in. The source starts with something pretty fundamental, just acknowledging the negative feelings.
Yeah, and what's interesting, the source kind of touches on the science behind this. Basically, just naming an emotion, saying, okay, I'm feeling guilty, or you feel afraid, can actually calm down the part of your brain, the amygdala, that processes these things.
Oh, interesting.
So labeling it literally starts to lessen its power over you. It gives you that little bit of distance.
That makes total sense. It's like turning the light on, isn't it? Instead of letting it fester in the dark. So the idea is just pause and identify. Is it guilt? Is it fear about that presentation? Or maybe defensiveness because you feel blamed?
And in a professional setting, that pause is gold.
Mm.
Instead of just reacting maybe defensively or spiraling into self-criticism,
Right.
you create space. And that space lets you look at the situation a bit more objectively. The source suggests this is really key to moving from just pure emotion to, understanding what actually happened.
Okay. So you acknowledge the feeling, but then, especially like in the fast-paced US work environment, the next step often seems to be the blame game, right? Pointing fingers, or maybe more often than we admit, turning that blame right back on ourselves.
Yeah, it's this almost automatic human thing, isn't it? To find someone or something responsible when things go wrong. But the source gives a really strong counter strategy, actively questioning those blame thoughts.
How so?
Well, it gives this very practical example. Instead of thinking, say, ugh, I shouldn't have done that, I totally messed up,
Mm.
which is just pure self-blame.
And gets you nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You consciously shift it to something like, okay, that didn't go as planned. What did I learn from this experience? Or what can I do differently next time?
Ah, okay. See, that's a huge difference in self-talk. The first one just keeps you stuck, feeling bad.
Well, the second one finds the value. It reframes a failure into a learning opportunity. And honestly, in today's job market, that ability to learn and adapt is, crucial. It's accountability, yes, but it's about growth, not punishment.
Absolutely. Which leads nicely into the next idea. Reframing our thoughts more generally, using positive self-talk, because that inner critic, man, it can be loud,
Oh, for sure.
especially under pressure. Thoughts like, I'm not good enough for this promotion, or I can't handle this project. That kind of negative self-chatter.
And that chatter really erodes confidence, doesn't it? It can hold you back.
Yeah.
So the source suggests actively countering it with affirmations, positive statements.
Like,
Simple things like, I am capable, I am resilient, I learn from challenges, things like that.
okay. I know some people might feel a bit, I don't know, awkward saying affirmations at first.
Maybe. But the source suggests it's about practice, like maybe saying them in the morning or before a tough meeting or even just writing one down. It's about intentionally feeding your brain more positive, supportive messages.
Kind of retraining that inner voice.
Exactly, building up that positive internal narrative over time.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like building mental muscle. And related to that inner strength is the idea of cultivating self-love. Now, I know in the results-driven professional world, self-love might sound a bit fluffy.
Huh, yeah, I get that. But the way the source frames it, it's not about being self-indulgent. It's more about um, basic self-care and recognizing your own value separate from your job title or latest success.
So practical self-care.
Right. The source mentions things like quiet coffee, reading, nature walks. For a busy professional, maybe that translates to actually taking your lunch break.
Instead of eating at the desk again.
Right. Or maybe carving out 15 minutes after work for a walk, or making sure you have time for a hobby that recharges you. It's about prioritizing your well-being.
And the source also mentions journaling, specifically focusing on accomplishments, like writing down wins, big or small, and positive qualities.
Yeah, which can be really powerful when you're feeling down or guilty about something at work. It helps balance out that negativity bias we all sometimes have. It reminds you of your strengths.
Okay, now the next strategy is phrased as surrender to a higher power, which obviously has spiritual connotations.
It does in the source, yes. But I think we can look at the core idea in a broader way that applies to everyone, regardless of belief.
How would you interpret that core idea?
For me, it's about letting go of the need for absolute control in every professional situation. That pressure we feel sometimes to manage every detail, predict every outcome.
Oh, yeah, exhausting.
Totally.
Wow.
So surrender here could mean trusting your skills, your preparation, and accepting that some things are just outside your direct control, focusing your energy on what you can influence.
So less about spirituality, perhaps, and more about acceptance
Yeah,
and focusing effort.
exactly. The source mentions prayer or meditation, but that could easily be secular mindfulness or just taking quiet moments to reflect, process, and manage that feeling of overwhelm without needing to fix everything instantly. It builds resilience against uncertainty.
Got it. Letting go of that constant grip. Okay, and the final point is about our network, surrounding ourselves with positivity.
Which sounds obvious, but it's
Yeah.
about being intentional about it. Who are the colleagues, the mentors, the peers who genuinely support you, who focus on growth, not just problems?
Right. Because negativity can be contagious.
It really can. So, consciously spending time with those positive, inspiring people in your professional life can make a huge difference to your mindset, especially when you're dealing with tough emotions like guilt or fear related to work. They help reinforce a more constructive outlook.
Okay, so let's recap quickly. We've talked about several key strategies from the source for handling these negative professional emotions calmly. First, just acknowledging the feeling.
Naming it.
Then actively challenging that blame game, shifting from blame to learning.
Reframing, yeah.
Using positive self-talk, those affirmations, to counter the inner critic. Prioritizing self-care as a form of, well, self-respect or self-love.
Finding ways to recharge.
Learning to let go of the need for absolute control, focusing on what you can influence.
Trusting yourself and accepting uncertainty.
And finally, intentionally building and engaging with a positive, supportive, professional network.
And it's so important to remember this is a process. It's ongoing work. It requires patience and self-compassion, especially in demanding careers.
Absolutely. It's not a quick fix. So maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener. Consider one situation recently, maybe at work, where you felt that guilt or fear or maybe felt unfairly blamed. Just pick one. Now, how might applying just one of these strategies, maybe challenging the blame thought, maybe just acknowledging the feeling without judgment, how might that shift your perspective, even slightly? How might it change that internal conversation you have with yourself moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. It's about those small shifts, progress, finding what works for you.